Your baby will forget almost everything about right now. This room, this night, your face eventually, at least the conscious version of it. And most parents, when they first hear that, feel something they can't quite name. A kind of sadness, like all of this, the exhaustion, the 3 a.m. wake-ups, the endless hours of trying, is somehow disappearing into nothing. But here's what nobody tells you. Forgetting and gone are not the same thing. Because before your baby's brain can form a single story-based memory, before they can hold on to a face or a name or a moment, their nervous system is already recording something else entirely. Not events, not images, feelings. The way their body calmed the second you picked them up, whether your voice felt steady or scared when they cried, what happened to their fear in your arms, what their body learned to expect from people who said they loved them. That's what stays, not as memory, as blueprint. And that blueprint, formed quietly, invisibly, in the most ordinary moments of the first year of life, will go on to shape how they love, how they trust, how much safety they allow themselves to feel for the rest of their life. Which means the nights you think don't matter, they might be the ones that matter most. If that already landed somewhere, you're in the right place. Subscribe, because this is exactly what we talk about here. And drop a comment. One word describing how parenthood feels for you right now. Just one. I read every single one. Here's the part that gets me every time. Most parents are already doing this, right now, today, without reading a single parenting book or watching a single video about attachment theory or nervous system development. You picked them up when they startled awake this morning. You made that face, you know the one, when they looked up at you after falling, the face that said, "You're okay," before your mouth did. You said, I know, at 2 a.m. to someone who doesn't understand a word of it yet. And in those moments, you probably felt nothing profound, just tired, just going through the motions, just doing the next thing because the next thing needed doing. But something was happening underneath all of that. Every time your baby's nervous system sent out a distress signal, and every time yours answered it, a very specific kind of learning was taking place. Not the flashcard kind, not the kind you can track or measure or put on a milestone chart. The kind that gets written directly into the body. When I'm scared, something happens. When I cry, someone comes. When the world feels too big, it gets smaller again. That's it. That's the whole lesson. And it sounds almost embarrassingly simple until you meet the adult version of someone who never learned it, the one who can't ask for help without apologizing for it, who handles everything alone and calls it strength, who feels vaguely guilty anytime they need something from another person. That's not a personality type. That's a nervous system that learned very early to stop expecting an answer. Which is why what you're doing in these ordinary, invisible, completely forgettable moments, it's not small. It's the whole thing. Before children understand language, they understand pattern. Before they know what love means, they know what love does, whether it shows up, whether it stays, whether the world becomes more manageable when someone is close, or whether closeness doesn't actually change anything. Your baby is building that map right now. And here's what I want you to carry into the rest of this video. The map doesn't require perfection. It requires enough warmth, enough presence, enough returning after the hard moments. You don't have to be the parent who never fails. You have to be the parent who keeps showing up. And there's a very good chance, if you're here watching this, genuinely trying to understand what your child needs, you already are. So let's start at the beginning, the very first thing the body learns: what safety feels like. Memory 1. What safety feels like. A baby wakes at 2 a.m., room dark, and for a second, before the crying even fully starts, their whole body tightens. Fists curl, legs kick. Something in their nervous system fires before their brain can catch up. And then someone comes. They get lifted, pressed against a warm chest. A heartbeat appears under their ear, rhythmic, familiar, the same one they spent 9 months learning to recognize before they even had ears to hear it properly. And slowly, not instantly, slowly, the breathing changes. This is the part most people miss. What's happening here isn't just comfort, it's co-regulation. A baby's nervous system is genuinely unfinished at birth. They cannot return themselves to calm, not because they're weak, but because that part of the brain literally isn't built yet. So they borrow regulation from yours. Your heartbeat becomes the metronome their body follows back to safety. Your arms become the first classroom their stress response ever sits in. And here's the twist. We've spent decades worrying that holding babies too much creates dependency, that we're teaching them they can't cope alone, that we need to start building independence early. But the research says something that completely flips that logic. A nervous system that learns safety through closeness early, that gets the repeated experience of, I was overwhelmed and someone helped me come back, is actually more capable of handling stress later, not less. Security doesn't make children fragile. It gives them something to return to when the world gets hard. So when you pick them up again tonight, for the 3rd time or the 5th or the 9th, you're not creating weakness. You're building the first answer to the first question they will ever ask. Am I safe here? And you're already answering yes. Memory number 2. What being seen feels like. Here's something that happens dozens of times a day that most parents never notice. Baby falls, not hard, just enough to startle. And before they decide whether to cry, before they even process what happened, they look up, straight at your face. And whatever they find there becomes their answer. Your face softens. They're okay. Your face tightens with alarm. Suddenly, they're not. Babies study facial expressions before they understand a single word, tone before meaning, emotion before language. They are reading you constantly, not to manipulate, not strategically, but because for a very long time, your face is their most reliable source of information about reality. And over thousands of these tiny interactions, something starts building. Not a thought, not a belief they could articulate, something deeper than that. I exist. Someone notices. I matter to the people who see me. A surprising amount of what psychologists call self-worth starts there. Not in achievement, not in praise, not in being told you're special, in the much simpler, much more physical experience of being looked at with warmth, regularly, by someone who means it. And the reverse is also true, which is uncomfortable but important to say. There are adults walking around right now who feel invisible in almost every room they enter, who shrink constantly, who perform endlessly trying to earn the attention they can't quite believe they deserve just by existing. A lot of them aren't broken. They just never quite got the repeated experience of someone's face lighting up when they walked in. This isn't about guilt. It's about understanding what's actually at stake in the moments that feel like nothing. Because right now, today, your face is your baby's whole mirror, the first one they ever look into to find out who they are. Make sure what they see looking back is someone worth seeing. Memory number 3. What a safe voice sounds like. You probably talk to your baby more than you realize. Okay, let's get you changed. There we go. I know, you hate this part. Half whispers, exhausted narration, sentences that trail off because you're too tired to finish them, conversations that go completely unanswered. And in those moments, it probably feels like nothing, like noise you're making just to fill the silence. But the brain isn't listening for meaning yet. It's listening for rhythm, tone, predictability, the specific texture of a voice that's calm versus one that's scared, whether the sound that fills the room when something goes wrong is steady or whether it tightens, sharpens, disappears. Your voice is becoming associated with regulation itself. There's research showing that a familiar caregiver's voice can lower cortisol in a baby's body before they understand a single word being said. The nervous system responds first. Meaning comes later, which is why certain phrases stay inside people for 30, 40 years. It's okay. I'm here. You're all right. Simple words, almost embarrassingly simple, and yet for some people they become the internal voice that talks them down from panic for the rest of their lives. And for others, people who never quite had that voice, self-soothing is genuinely hard because you can't use a tool you were never handed. You don't need the right words. You don't need to narrate everything perfectly or maintain some cheerful, educational, running commentary all day. You just need to stay present in your voice, even when you're tired, even when you have nothing interesting to say, even at 3 a.m. when what comes out sounds more like, please, please just go back to sleep, than anything resembling conscious parenting. That counts. That voice, the human, imperfect, genuinely trying one, is the one that becomes home. Memory number 4. Who came back when it hurt? This one is harder. Think about the last time you were really struggling, not stressed, actually falling apart. Did you call someone? Did you say, "I'm not okay," out loud? Or did you go quiet and handle it alone? Most of us go quiet, and most of us learned that before we were old enough to understand why. Not because someone sat us down and said, "Your needs are inconvenient," but because we cried enough times without an answer that our nervous system quietly stopped expecting one. We learned to manage alone and told ourselves that was strength. Your baby is in the middle of learning which version of that is true for them. Every time they cry, their nervous system is running the same experiment. I sent a signal. What happens next? And what happens next, not once, not perfectly, but as a pattern over weeks and months, becomes one of the most load-bearing beliefs they will carry into adulthood. When I fall apart, do people come, or do I deal with it alone? Now, and this is important, you don't need to answer every cry perfectly. Research on attachment consistently shows that warm, genuine responsiveness about half the time is enough to build security. Half. Not perfection, not perfect attunement. What breaks the pattern isn't an unanswered cry, It's an unanswered pattern. So yes, there will be nights you walk to that crib frustrated, nights where you stand there empty with nothing left, just your body showing up because your body still can. Nights where all you have is the fact that you came. That's enough. The act of coming is the message, and the message is simple. You are not alone in this. Not tonight, not ever if I can help it. That belief, internalized early, written into bone, becomes the difference between an adult who reaches out when they're drowning and one who disappears quietly and calls it fine. You're not just answering a cry, you're answering a question they'll still be living inside of at 40.
Memory number 5. What joy feels like. Here's something nobody talks about enough. Joy is not a reward for getting the hard stuff right. It's not what happens after you've handled all the real parenting. It's not extra. It's data. When your baby erupts into that full-body laugh, the kind that takes over their whole face, their whole chest, their whole existence for 3 completely unguarded seconds, their nervous system is recording something that no structured activity, no developmental toy, no tummy time routine can replicate. Life can feel good here. People are safe. Being alive can be light. That gets written in, not as memory, as orientation, a baseline sense of what the world is. And that baseline will quietly shape how much joy they allow themselves as adults. Whether they can let good things be good without waiting for something to go wrong, whether they trust happiness or treat it like a warning sign. Think about the adults you know who can't quite relax into good moments, who deflect compliments, who feel vaguely guilty when things are going well. Somewhere early on, joy got complicated for them. You have a chance in the most ridiculous, unglamorous, completely undignified moments of blowing raspberries on a baby belly to make joy uncomplicated for your child. They don't need elaborate toys. They need your actual face. The one that breaks into a real smile before you decide to make it. The involuntary one. Because that smile teaches something the deliberate one can't. You make me happy just by being here. And by the way, you're allowed to let it feel good for you too. You're allowed to laugh. You're allowed to be silly. You're allowed to let peekaboo crack you open a little on a hard day. That's not a distraction from parenting. That might be the most important part of it. Memory number 6. That love survives hard moments. Here's the thing about consistency that nobody actually explains. It doesn't mean always being there. It doesn't mean never losing your patience, never saying the wrong thing, never being too tired to show up the way you wanted to. It means coming back. Every time you repair after a hard moment, every time you walk back in and say, "I'm sorry, that was too much of me," you're teaching something that textbooks can't fully capture. That relationships don't break when people fail each other. That love isn't conditional on everything going perfectly. That the people who love you come back. Not just when it's easy, but especially after the hard parts. A child doesn't build a secure foundation from a perfect parent. They build it from a parent who returns. From the pattern of things fell apart and then they came back together. Over and over. Quietly. Without fanfare. Just the ordinary, unremarkable act of choosing to reconnect when it would have been easier to stay distant. That pattern becomes something developmental psychologists call a secure base. But what it actually feels like, lived out in a real body,
is something much simpler. The unshakable sense that love doesn't disappear. Not when you cry, not when you fail, not when you're too much or not enough, or somewhere in between. It's still there. It came back. It keeps coming back. And one day, not soon, maybe not for years, your child will hit something that genuinely undoes them. A heartbreak, a failure, a moment where the world stops making sense. And they will reach, without knowing why, for something inside themselves. A feeling, a pattern their body learned before they had words for any of this. I have been through hard things and come back before. The people who love me stay. I know what it feels like to be held when I'm falling apart. You're building that right now. In the returns, in the repairs, in the completely ordinary Tuesday moments nobody will ever make a highlight reel of. That's where it lives. And here's what I want to leave you with. Your baby will forget almost all of this. The blanket, the song, the exact shape of this room at 3 a.m., the way you looked when you were exhausted and trying anyway. They will forget the specific moments the way all of us forget the specific moments. But the nervous system doesn't forget the pattern. It carries forward the feeling of what happened in all those forgettable moments, whether the world felt safe or uncertain, whether people came or didn't, whether love was something solid or something that had to be earned, chased, carefully managed. That's what stays, not as memory, as architecture, the invisible structure underneath everything, the way they'll love, the way they'll trust, the way they'll talk to themselves on their worst days when nobody's watching. And I want to say something directly to the parents who've been watching this and feeling the weight of it. The ones who are doing this without a model, who are showing up consistently for a child without ever quite knowing what consistent love felt like for themselves, who are giving something they had to go find on their own, building something they were never handed a blueprint for. That is not small. It is one of the hardest things a human being can do, to give what you never received, to stay when everything you learned said staying wasn't safe, to look at this small person and decide, quietly, without applause, without anyone fully understanding what it costs, that it stops here, that the gap ends with you. And to the parents who are just tired, not carrying some big unresolved thing, just genuinely, physically, existentially exhausted by how much this takes, I want you to hear this too. You don't need to be the parent you are on your best days. Your child needs the parent who shows up on the worst ones, the one who walks back in after losing it, the one who stays up for the 4th time with nothing left, the one who looks at this small, demanding, completely dependent human being and chooses them anyway, without certainty, without feeling like enough, without any guarantee that they're doing it right. That parent is enough. Not because the bar is low, because that is the thing. That has always been the thing. The return, the repair, the showing up anyway. Because some memories are never stored as stories. They're stored as the feeling of being loved before you had words for love, as safety, as trust, as the quiet, unshakable knowledge that when things fall apart, someone comes. And your baby is learning that right now. From you. Just you, imperfect, exhausted, genuinely trying, is already more than enough to build something that lasts a lifetime. If this video moved something in you, share it with a parent who needs to hear it today. Subscribe if you want more of these conversations, and leave a comment. What's the hardest part of parenting for you right now? Not the highlight reel version, the real answer. I read every single one. And I mean that.